Okay, so as you guys can see, I've got a lot of stuff set up here, so I'll kind of explain what I've got. I have all 3 of my drawing pencils here because we are going to start to shade today. Drawing's done, so we're ready to start to shade. So I've got my 4H, my 3B, and my 6B, and you'll notice here I've got my regular pencil here. All we're going to do with this, guys, we're going to use the eraser on the end. So there's going to be some areas that are a little tight that this eraser won't get to. So our backup. So I've also got the pink eraser, I have the kneaded eraser. I'm going to put these things off to the side so they get out of the way. I have my finished drawing right here. Now what you do want to make sure, guys, is that you have erased all your old guidelines and you have erased that line that represents the back edge of our construction paper that went through our apple. You want to get rid of that. So you don't want that apple to look like it's transparent. So clean that up, get rid of all those lines you don't need anymore. I also have my shading worksheet because I'm going to use this as a reference. Okay? So you want yours handy too. And then I have 2 pieces of scrap paper. And as you can see, I've already used these. That's fine. We are going to continue to use these throughout this project. Okay? So I'm going to put these off to the side. So first thing I want to do, I'm going to show you my drawing. So this is what it looks like done. And now it's ready for shading. We are going to start shading the background first. Okay? Basically, this is going to look exactly like this. Okay? So this gradated scale that you did on your worksheet is basically going to go here. But, there's a big but here. We want to make sure that the light source makes sense for the back wall, which we're going to make this look like a wall, our apple, and our paper. So on my project, if you guys look, my apple is here on the right, cast shadow on the left. That means my light source is coming from which side? My right or my left? My right. So the light's coming this way. It's hitting the apple. The apple is blocking the light from getting here, which is creating this cast shadow. So that means that the lightest area on the apple is going to be on this side for me. The lightest area on the paper is going to be this side, right here on the right too. And it's also going to be the lightest area for my back wall that I'm going to create. Okay? So we want to make sure it stays consistent. Okay? So even though, so if you look at this, this would be the right direction for me. It's going to be more like this. I'll try to put these together. So you see that? So my lightest area is going to be here. That will be white. It will gradually get darker and darkest over here. Now, if you have your apple on the left, you are going to be opposite of me. Okay? You will have your background looking like this. Okay? So what I want to do, okay, I want you to take your worksheet, your shaded worksheet, and I want you to put it right here next to your project, right above it like this. And I want you to put it in the direction that the light should be going for your background. I want to make sure that you know where the lightest area should be before we start. So I'm going to walk around and check that out. Okay, so we're ready to start. So basically when I do this, and I'm going to show you the one I did for first period. So if you guys look, this is my first period one. I did not take this all the way to black. So I'm kind of like more like I went medium dark. So if you look right above medium dark, that's pretty much the darkest that I went over here. That's not to say that I'm not going to go darker eventually. And if you even look at my apple, what I've got shaded here, I don't have my darkest value on there yet. I like to reserve the very end of the project to put that darkest value where it needs to go. Okay? So we're pretty much going to, as we go through and we start the shading, we're just going to take things up to about a medium dark, and then we'll pop in all our darkest values at the end. Okay? So I'm going to kind of put this, I'll need to put this off to the side. And this off to the side too. And then what you're going to do, you're going to take one of your scrap pieces of paper You're going to put it right behind your project like this. The reason for this is because, especially while we're doing shading this area, we're going to be shading right up against the edge of the paper. We do not want to get pencil all over the table for two reasons. One, we want to keep the tables clean, and two, you don't want to get that lead that gets on the table on your project, and it will. So it does not stay on there. And then the second piece right here is going to be used when I'm shading to block my hand and my arm from smearing everything on my drawing. It never fails with a project like this. You lift your arm up, your drawing arm, and you've got like whatever material all over and down your arm. In addition to that, it smears everything, and you don't want to smear it. So the other piece of paper is going to be used to protect your work. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and start with my 4H pencil, okay? Now, we are making this part up, okay? We are going to try to make this look like a wall. To make it look like a wall, I'm going to shade with my lines going up and down like this. And for that reason, I'm actually going to turn my paper, so it's a little bit easier for me. And I'm going to take, and again, I'm just starting with my 4H pencil. I'm going to take my 4H pencil, and I'm just going to start shading with these straight lines like this, up and down, or I guess cross. It's more like side to side because the way I have my paper. Oh, you know what? I forgot to do one thing. Hold on. You want to take your eraser, and if your lines are dark, of course mine are because I did this the wrong way on purpose, you want to take your eraser and just kind of go over your pencil lines to lighten them up. I'm using the pink eraser, so that way I can keep my kneaded eraser pretty clean. And I'm just rolling on top of my drawing just to lighten the whole thing up, because I do not want to see these outlines when I'm finished. If you see an outline, that's going to automatically flatten your drawing, and we want to make these look 3D. So I'm going to erase over this. You can still see the drawing. Of course, again, I made my lines dark just so that it showed up on the video. You guys should have nice light lines, but if you don't, just erase over top of them. All right, so now I'm ready. I'm going to resume what I was doing before. Now, of course, I am starting on the dark side. If your apple's on the opposite side, you should be starting on the other side. I'm starting on the left because my apple's on the right. Okay, so again, my apple's on the right, my darkest over here is going to be on the left. If you're opposite of me, you should be shading over here. Now, because I know I am shading in the darkest area, I'm not concerned with having light pressure here, so I can kind of just lay down some pressure on the pencil, and that's fine. You'll notice it's kind of hard to deal with the side of it here when you get close to the edge of the paper. You still want to make sure that your shading looks nice and smooth. So if you're getting a lot of lines, you probably don't have a very good edge to shade with. And when you get to the edge where the construction paper is, just make sure you're really controlling what you're doing. Slow it down. You want that edge to stay nice and clean, so do not shade past it. Now you want to keep an eye where you're at on the background. I would say, again, we need to make sure that the far side, the opposite side that we're at right now, is going to stay white. So as I move towards the right, or the lightest side for me, which is on the right, I'm going to lighten up my pressure. So even though I'm using the 4H pencil, I still want to see it go from a dark 4H to a lighter 4H. This is the part that takes the longest. Just getting this 4H on here. So at this point now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to start lightening up my pressure. So I've just about hit where my apple is. And again, I don't want to take my shading all the way down because I want that to remain white. So you have to leave some white. Okay. So again, as I want things to lighten or blend out, I really lighten up the pressure. I'm not putting any pressure down or pushing down on my pencil at all. I'm really lifting it off. So this is what I've got so far with my 4H pencil. All of this right here is white still. I can even take, again, I always have a problem with getting a little bit of an edge right here. I'm going to take my 4H, or not my 4H, my kneaded eraser and just kind of tap over this edge, which will help kind of fade that out. All right, so I've got a layer of 4H there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to my 3B. Again, you know, my apple's over here on the right. That means my lightest value should be here on the right also too, and it's gradually going to get darker towards the left. If your apple is on the left, you're the opposite of me. So now I'm going to start with my 3B pencil. Get myself a nice edge to shade with. And I'm going to go start right here down at the darkest end. And I'm going to shade right on top of that 4H. And again, because I know that this is the darker side, I can put a little bit more pressure on this. I'm still just going to be a little bit on the cautious side because I can always make it darker later. If I go too dark, it's really hard to fix. Again, I've got my extra piece of paper both under and on top of my drawing. I'm still taking my sort of shading in the same direction I did before. Just kind of, I've got my paper turned, so I am going side to side. If you guys do need to sharpen your pencils, feel free to get up. This is going to happen a lot as we shade, that you're going to kind of grind down those pencils, so sharpen if you need to. There's one pencil sharpener in the back of the room, and there's two up here in the front. Now, I'm not going to take this 3B all the way down to where I put the 4H. I'm not quite sure where I'm going to stop it though yet, but I can tell you that I'm not going to take it all the way to where the 4H is. So I'm probably going to stop this. I'm at sort of in the middle of my background. I'm going to stop it just a little bit beyond this point. Again, I can always go back and make this stuff darker if I need to. It's harder to make things lighter once you have gotten them darker, so that's why I like to kind of be sort of on the cautious side. So I'm going to start to fade this out. So again, when I fade it out, I'm lifting up the pressure on my pencil, not pushing down as much. I'm just kind of very lightly just going over the paper. Okay, so I'll show you. I stopped my 3B about right here. So here's about the middle of my paper. I stopped my 3B pencil about right here and just kind of faded it off. I'm going to go ahead and do a second coat just back here where it does need to be darker. I'm just going to keep kind of, again, building this up a little bit. And I will switch to my 3B. But remember, we're not going for our darkest value quite yet. We're going to leave that to the end of our project. So the darkest value we're going to have at this point is just going to be like a medium dark. Okay. That's what I've got so far. Got some patchiness to deal with, but I'll deal with that as I go through. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to my 6B. Again, I'm going to start over here on the darkest side. Again, I'm not going for a black right now. We're going to leave our darkest value to the end of the project. I will say that when I start to try to build up some of these darker values, I do tend to take my sort of the direction of my shading in a lot of different directions. I do think that helps. So you may notice, like maybe I am going side to side, but at times I do turn my paper and I cross over those with different sets of lines. I'm going to spend a little time here dealing with this top edge of my paper. Now again, I'm not going to take this 6B even all the way down to where I put all the 3B. And when I'm ready, I'm going to kind of lift up my hand, and that's how I blend. Okay, so this is what I've got so far. I'm going to compare this again to my value scale that I have here on my worksheet, so you guys can see that. So here's where my white is. got my light gray, then I'm going to my medium gray, and then I go to like my medium dark. I do not have, and you can tell here, here's my darkest value that I got on my scale. It does not exist right now, and that's fine. We just want to give ourselves a good start. So just get it to the point where you think you have your medium dark on there as your darkest value. So I'm going to give you guys a few minutes more to work on that. And the next step is going to be to work on shading the apple. Just going to tidy some of this up a little bit. Get some of these patches filled in. All right. So you guys keep working, fill in your patches. Remember, do not get your darkest value on there yet. We're just shooting for a medium dark on the darkest side. Next step is going to be shading the apple.